Hi, thank you for your question. So for those who don't know, hi, my name is MJ. I'm a trans man. I started medically transitioning when I was 26. I'm 33 now. But I've been in and out of the closet for the past almost 20 years. So there's tons of valid reasons why people detransition. A lot of people I think are under the presumption that people just wake up one day and they're like, oh, I don't want to transition anymore, so I'm gonna go back. Which, hey, I mean, that's valid too. Like, people should be able to do whatever the hell they want with their own bodies, within reason. But there are tons of other reasons why people detransition, like, employment security, safety, family issues, religious issues. In order for me to detransition again, I mean, I can't predict the future, but the benefits of detransitioning would have to seem like they'd outweigh the negative. And there's a reason why I emphasize the word seem. So this is what I would consider my first, major detransition. I was about 16 years old in that photo, and I was socially presenting masculine. Like, I let a lot of people believe I was just, a masculine lesbian, but I got mistaken for a dude a lot. I mean, I looked pretty much like I do now, just no tattoos. Actually, I did have some, but not as many. I started towards the end kind of adopting male pronouns. I remember my screen name, I think had the word king in it. I remember people being like, why does it say king? You're a girl. This photo, I am probably 18. It's not that long after. I did flip-flop back and forth a lot, and it's because, I was really heavily struggling, mainly with religion. I was convinced, I mean, at the time, I still do have OCD, but, I had really bad OCD then that was brought on by, kind of religious trauma, and, I used to literally think I'd go to hell if I, exaggerated something, or, God, if I breathed the wrong way. So having identity issues like that heavy, it was hard, because I really thought that, I must not be a good person, I must be hellbound. So, in this situation, we take, the benefits and the cons of detransitioning. The benefits, I figured I won't be, burning in a fiery place. Because that was my reality, what I was thinking at the time. Or what I thought was my reality, I should say. If I detransitioned, I knew I'd fit in more. I wouldn't embarrass my family. My parents have since become very accepting, but, it's not a, what do they call that, a linear road? I don't know. In this situation, the benefits seemed at first glance that they outweighed the negatives, so I went with it. And the reason I say seemed, keyword, I mean, obviously I am very glad that I detransitioned because I had my son and everything, but I had a lot of years of a lot of struggles. So this is my second and last so far major detransition. This is almost 10 years later. By the way, that's not a mugshot. It's worse. It's my passport photo. Oh my god. Okay, so let's look at this scenario here. I had just been told that I probably shouldn't continue with tea because my liver was failing. I had been on it for 3 years. I mean, I was passing in public, life was pretty Gucci. And honestly, I was terrified. I was scared. I was like, shit. For one, it's very harrowing to, hear that, such a intense form of freedom is being taken from you. But then to add to it, are my changes gonna revert? Am I not gonna pass in public? What is life gonna look like? I felt like every day when I looked in the mirror, I was thinking, how much more of my, free self am I gonna lose when I look into the mirror? And I know this might sound crazy to some, but I couldn't do it, and I felt like it was ripping off a Band-Aid. I felt like, what, if everything's gonna revert, everything, I can't slowly watch it, I'm just gonna do it. And I detransitioned, and another reason why I detransitioned is because I knew that going off testosterone was gonna be a very hard thing for me mentally, and it was. And I live in an area, now people leave me alone, but I'm not stupid. I know it's because they recognize me from TikTok and everything. It's not always easy, not always passing and going out where I live, it hasn't always been kosher. So in my head, I was like, okay, benefit. I can just deal with my dysphoria in therapy, it won't get rid of it, but at least I can get help with it, and nobody's gonna hassle me in public. Even though I was covered in tattoos, people really did leave me alone. I thought I'm not gonna have to sit there every day looking at what's gonna change on my face, how my body's gonna change. If I do it myself instantaneously, then I can just accept it. I do want to point out one thing, though. A negative of detransitioning for me was my son. And a lot of people, they're always, I get comments like, oh, that's traumatizing. Your son needs a mom. He has a mom. Thanks. But you know what they mean. But my son, like, I transitioned when he was so young. Like, this is how he knows me. Even if, like, having a mom that looks like this is very foreign to other people, that's how my son knows me. Like, I'm his safety net. Like, I'm his comfort. I'm his mom. So I was very worried about how it would impact my son. But like I always say, at the end of the day, kids only care if you're compassionate, empathetic, if you're safe, reliable. And one thing about me is I always show up and I always show out for my kid. And that's all that's mattered this whole time. But that was a negative that I considered. But considering everything in the situation, I felt like for my own mental health, for, safety, I should just detransition, and that's the decision I made. But once again, that seem word, okay? Like, it seemed like the benefits were gonna outweigh the negative. But it was very hard for me, mentally, very, very hard, for me to, detransition and present as a woman. I was very, very insecure. So a lot of you know my husband, he met me as I am now. But he stayed with me through my detransition. I have pictures. And when I talk about these times and how he stayed with me and stuff, I think a lot of people, well, I know because of my comment section, the first thought people have is like, yeah, but how was your, for lack of terminology I can or can't use on here, your intimate life, and like, was he still attracted to you and all this? I always say my husband is MJ sexual, but he does prefer men, so for him to stay with me during this, but honestly, those things weren't an issue. Not an issue at all. There was no issue in both of those areas. But it did impact, like, some areas of our relationship. We weren't married at the time, so relationship, not marriage yet. And it was because I was so uncomfortable with myself. Like, I was not happy. I was very insecure. I was very anxious. I have anxiety now, but back then, I barely wanted to do anything. I felt like I was crawling, out of my skin all the time. Like, when I mention things about, oh, what if I have to detransition again? What if I detransition? Blah, blah, blah. Because, we talk about things like that, pretty frequently. My husband, he's very expressive that he'd always stay with me, always find me attractive, always love me. But his main hesitance when it comes to me detransitioning is, he saw me go through it. He saw how hard it was for me mentally, and he saw how, uncomfortable I was, and I think he's very nervous for me to feel that again. But yeah, it did cause, a lot of arguments because, I wasn't happy with myself, and I was uncomfortable, so, we argued a lot. It was not really a super healthy relationship in the first stages. It was a little toxic because I was just not in a good place. And he was just starting to go to a good place and starting to get sober and everything, which he has stayed sober, this whole time. It's been years. So, in that scenario, like I said, it seemed like it was a good idea to, detransition. It seemed like it was going to really be easier in some ways, but it was not. So if I were to ever make the decision to detransition again, it would be the same. The benefits would have to seem like they were going to outweigh the negative. If there was some situation where I could only, secure a bag, get funds for my family, by presenting as a woman, I'm gonna do it. If there's a situation, there's a lot of really scary rhetoric and legislation going around right now. If it ever came down to, I had to detransition to, protect my family, I'm doing it. As far as my authentic self, obviously I'm a trans man, so my authentic self is male. I can't change that. That's how my brain sees me. But I've been learning to live life on my terms, and realizing, this is the only life I have, and I want to learn to live it on my terms and not on the terms of, a higher power that, honestly, I don't even know if they exist. I want to find out what MJ wants and how MJ wants to live my life. And obviously that's with my family, because I love them. But when I think of that and I think of my authentic self, I don't think of a physical form. I think of how I advocate, how I'm a great parent, I'm hilarious. I think that's my authentic self.